What led a former teacher to leave the classroom for a career in real estate investing? What do so many people miss when it comes to real estate? And how should high mortgage rates impact investing strategies today? Welcome to the Investing Teacher Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Cavey. And my mission here is to help middle-income earners like teachers learn how to invest wisely and build financial freedom, even in uncertain times. We're here to share our thoughts and opinions. For actual financial advice, please seek the services of a professional financial advisor. Today's investor is Eric Vogel. Eric is the founder of The On Purpose Investor, a best-selling author and owner of a seven-figure real estate portfolio. After working for 8 years as a high school teacher, Eric left his job to become a full-time real estate investor. Eric lives with his wife, 2 boys, and their 2 fur babies in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia, where they enjoy hiking, exploring new food, creating new experiences for their children, and continuing to grow their real estate portfolio. You can connect with Eric on Instagram, YouTube, and his website at On Purpose Investor and onpurposeinvestor.com. Eric, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Are you ready to talk investing?
Tim, thank you so much for having me. I'm ready to dive in. So shoot those questions and we'll get through as many as we can.
Let's get into it. Eric, let's start with story time. What led you to make the leap from a career in the classroom to one in real estate investing?
Tim, it was such a strange and unique journey. So here I am in my 7th year of teaching, and my father gets home from being deployed in Afghanistan as a contractor. Right. So he's over there. He's working as a diesel mechanic in Afghanistan. He comes home and he had sold his house and stuff like that. So he needed to find a new place to live. And here he is, single man, coming back home from, a very, tough environment in Afghanistan, obviously. And I kind of was led to not let him stay by himself. I was a single man. He was a single man. I was like, you know what? It's not the best thing to put on your match profile that you live with your father, but I was willing to take my risk, right? So I moved in with my dad. And in the middle of all that, I met my now wife, Tiffany. Our second date was her actually helping me move out of my house into my father's house. So interesting things happening there. And I talked to my realtor and I said, hey, I need to sell my house. And he said, well, you are going to have to bring about $10,000 to sell it. And I was like, oh, that's outside of what I'm able to do. I'm a high school teacher. I definitely don't have $10,000 stashed away. So I need another exit strategy. He said, Eric, you should try to rent your house out for at least a year. The market will go up. You'll build some equity. You can sell your house then. I said, no brainer. That's one tenant I have to place for 12 months and then I'm out. So go through all the rigmarole of getting it set up as a rental. I get it advertised. I take the first applicant that comes along that has verifiable income, place them, and I thought it was like set it and forget it. And then my wife and I get a little more serious and we start talking and she says, how's that rental property going? I said, well, I don't know. I mean, he pays me and there's no calls. So I guess everything's great. And she said, well, how does he pay rent? I said, oh, well, he puts money in an envelope and it stays in the garage and I go pick it up. And she's like, well, when's the last time you picked it up? I was like, actually, I haven't been down there to pick it up. It was 4 months after. And so here we are, 4 months after I turned it into a rental property. There's about $5,000 in cash sitting in an envelope in a garage that I hope it's there. And I just had no systems. And so my wife, then girlfriend, said, can I help you run this like a business? I said, sounds great. So we dove into a place called Bigger Pockets for real estate investors and real estate education, and just started really consuming all the things about being a real estate investor. We actually got a real lease. We developed systems on how to pay rent digitally and how to ensure that we're running this like a business and not just this little I have to hobby. And there was a deep conversation that happened about 8 months after we started dating, 8 months after I turned it into a rental. And she said, Eric, you're making about $300 a month on that property. What if you repeated that process and you could leave teaching and we could build up so much that I could leave my job too before we have our first child? And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And then we had to dive in deeper of why would we really want that? And I had to take a 30,000 foot view of my life and other people's lives that are high school band directors. And what I saw from that view was many, many, many of them dedicate their lives to the benefit of their programs and their students, which is a very noble cause. But I didn't want to be that father that dedicated 90% of his time to his students and career versus his own children and family. And so I had to make that decision, is it worth it to build this career, which, like I said, is very noble and very needed. But do I want to do that and say no to my family? Because anytime you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And I had to really figure out, what was I saying no to, and was it worth it to say no? Realized it was not worth it to say no. And ultimately went in with a lens of 18 months from now, I'm turning in my resignation. I will have built up enough rental cash flow that I could leave my job. And then after that point, I would go in even harder to replace my wife's income from her job. And so in a nutshell, that's kind of how I got into it and kind of how it evolved. But what you may not have noticed, or your listeners may not have noticed, is I could have made that decision at any point in time to go be an investor, but I doubt I would have been as successful as I was without two things. The first thing is that my wife, my spouse, my partner was on board with it. And two, that I had a big enough why to see through all of the difficult times, because it was not easy, Tim. There were so many struggles in those 36 months of building up this portfolio that I could have easily said, you know what, teaching is a lot easier. Teaching is so much easier than being a flipper, being a landlord, being a GC, a general contractor. It's easier than all of that. Why would I keep doing it? And it was because the motivation was the vision of our future family. Where did I want my time going? And so that's what was really hidden in all of that.
I love in your story, Eric, how, and I've heard this many times elsewhere, how real estate investors sometimes find their way into it sort of by accident. And you bought that first property not thinking this is sort of where the trajectory would go, but here you are. Yep. You've learned so much in the meantime. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more of that story. Eric, in 2022, you published The Pathfinder's Journey, The Key to Your Dream Life Through Real Estate Investing. I want to bring up an image of the book here, not sponsored, but there it is, The Key to Your Dream Life Through Real Estate Investing, one that you wrote together with your wife. I want to ask you, who is this book for and what can readers expect to take away from it?
Yeah. So I read two books that really inspired me to write this book with my wife. The two books were The Go-Giver and The Latte Factor. And those two books were very, very beneficial and motivating, but in a story format. And I just loved them because I could read this story. It just seemed like a really nice, leisure read, but I gained so much from it. And I said, there's not a book like that to help people figure out the mental framework into becoming a real estate investor. There's a lot of frameworks out there to teach people the A, B's, and C's of different strategies within real estate, but nothing really out there to help people sort what they need to get in line before they make their first deal happen. And so I said, I want to do that. And Tiffany said, I'm on board. Let's do that. Let's write a book. And so we wrote this book about a young couple, Charlie and Liza. Charlie's a firefighter. Liza is a high school teacher. You see, I got that in there, right? And their life gets interrupted by this neighbor. His name is Dan. And Dan interrupts their life in the most amazing way possible. He teaches them about investing strategies and teaches them about living life with intention and purpose and clarity. And so, who is this book for? It's for anybody that is looking to gain clarity on what they want to do with their life. And with a sense of real estate investing, of course, because that is what I have found my success in. So there's really two groups that it's for. It's for people looking to gain clarity on their life, and also for people that are just interested in figuring out, how do I become a real estate investor? What needs to happen before I go buy a deal? And then what can readers expect to take away? This was something that was very paramount in my mind when writing the book. We created really easy to read short chapters. But at the end of each chapter, there's a chapter summary. So if someone is like having a hard time digesting, they can go to the chapter summaries and pull out exactly what I said in those chapters. And so what are they going to take away from this? They're going to get a framework for their life. They're going to get a framework to figure out, what are the steps I need to take to make sure that a month from now, 6 months, a year, 10 years, I am living my life with intention and clarity. And I will see the success that I sought after at the very beginning.
I like how you keep making this conversation sort of an existential one. You don't make the assumption that, well, every teacher or every middle income earner should want to retire early. I don't hear you assuming that at all. We need to know what our why is, what our purpose is, what our mission is, and make sure that we're living that fulfilled life. We're stepping into our calling as human beings. And that's really exciting to me. I think that's so important. Eric, let's talk about, let's get a little bit practical here for someone listening. Let's say they are interested, they're starting to become interested. They are picking up your book, of course. We'll share that link toward the end of our conversation. What are your suggestions to teachers and other middle income earners who would like to make a move toward their first income property?
Yeah, my answer is a lot different than a lot of people's out there. My answer is get a clear vision and a clear picture of what does success look like for you. Because you're probably going to ask this later, why do people get started and end up failing as becoming a real estate investor? And first and foremost is they don't have the end in mind. I love quoting Yogi Berra. Two reasons why I love Yogi Bear. Who wouldn't, right? Give me my picnic basket. And then I also love that he was an influential athlete out there. He said, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. And that's what I want people to avoid, is that when they get to their later years in life, that they're not wondering how they got there. They're not wondering why they're where they're at. I refer a lot of my teachings to every single day of your life, you're climbing a ladder. Every single day, you either take a step up a ladder, you take a step down a ladder. You're climbing the rungs of a ladder to the top of the building of your life. And when you get to that top of the building of your life, toward the end of your life, are you standing on top of the right building? And the problem is people climb various ladders in their life with no intention and no clarity on, is this the right ladder? Is this the right building? Are the people around me the right people I want climbing the ladder with me? We spend more time, Americans, people in general, spend more time planning a 2-week vacation than they ever plan for their life. And, there's a lot of teachers out there that go to Disney World. And I tell you, planning a trip to Disney World, especially if you're taking a class trip to Disney World, you're going to plan that for 6 months. But how much time have you planned where your life is going? How much time have you planned what strategic moves are you making in your life? Of course, people out there have wealth advisors and they have people, managing the retirement accounts and stuff like that. They're not going to make the best decision for you. They don't know what your true joys in life are, or what you really want out of life. You can't trust it to someone else. You've got to put in the work. And so the first step any middle income earner or teacher or anyone out there that needs to do before investing in real estate is figure out, where do you want it to go? What do you want from it? Because once you figure that out, you'll have the energy and all of the fuel in your tank to get to the level of success that you're shooting for. And that's something that I love to help people do and love to help people figure out. And so my first step is not go out there and start making offers on deals, because you're going to make the wrong deal. You're going to make the wrong purchase. You're going to have buyer's remorse. And then you're going to be another one of those voices out there telling everyone how rental property investing is a terrible idea and that being a landlord is the worst thing you could ever do. That's where it goes wrong.
I love that. Yes, absolutely. Plan with the end in mind and backwards by design. These are pedagogical principles that teachers are very familiar with. So that should come as no surprise. And I mean, in your story, you fell into real estate investing a little bit by accident. Like I said earlier, that I've heard that story before. It can work out, but you're going to be you're increasing your odds of success, shall we say that, if you start with intention and vision. Does the current climate of high mortgage rates dampen your enthusiasm for investing in this space? Eric, how do these rates impact your investing strategy right now?
So there are two types of investors out there. There are your passive investors and active investors. Your passive investors are the ones that are investing into funds or syndications, or they're lenders, they're giving money for someone else to go invest in properties. Then you have your active investors. Your active investors do not care what the mortgage rates are doing. And that might come as a shock to you. They don't care that the national mortgage interest rate today is 7 3/4. They don't care, because they have one thing in mind when they are investing in property, and that is solving problems. They're there to solve problems for a homeowner or someone that has inherited a property or someone that's in a situation with their home. And a real good investor, a real good active investor is there to solve their problem. And so oftentimes your creative real estate investors are not going to the bank. 9 times out of 10, your creative investors are not using banks at all. They're using hard money, private money, and the money of the seller. And just a quick synopsis on what does that even mean? That means that they are going to the property and forming a plan to help this homeowner. And part of that strategy is that the buyer helps them by taking ownership of the property with their mortgage still in place. And so the new buyer pays the mortgage for them, and they help that person solve their problem, get out of the property, go somewhere else. And now there is probably a 10-week master course that would have to go into sub 2 investing. And it is not something you should approach lightly. It is something you need to absolutely have a plan and strategy for, because you can go to jail really quick if you do it the wrong way. So, just to answer that question, though, is high mortgage rates? No, it doesn't dampen my enthusiasm at all. Honestly, it encourages me to participate more actively, because high mortgage rates is going to scare away your non-savvy, non-motivated, your, people looking to get rich quick. It's going to discourage them from participating. And so there's more problems for real estate investors like myself to go solve. So I'm encouraged by it. I'm not discouraged by it.
Something that I was thinking about yesterday, and I listening to another real estate investor, was this idea that even though rates are high right now, it's going to actually pay off down the road as an investor. And one thing to think about is that in a climate of high rates, builders and developers get a lot more anxious. They get a lot more reluctant, and some of those building and developing activities slow down. There are just fewer towers going up, fewer complexes, that kind of thing. And so what that does is that downward pressure on building actually increases pressure and values over the next few years. And so we may not be seeing that just yet, but I would echo everything you just said. Keep the faith and think long term. And I love how you frame that as a service. And I really think that's an important vision. Part of the vision of a real estate investor is to provide that service for other people. Ultimately, you're providing a very valuable fundamental service. Thanks for joining us in this conversation, investors. If you're finding value here and watching us on video form, give this video a like. Eric, what is your ideal rental property? Are we talking 1-bedroom condos, single detached residential, multiplexes? What's your favorite or ideal investment?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer this with a little preface of my ideal property is not going to be yours. And you should not use my answer to base it and say, this is my answer too. Yeah. My answer is a 3-2-2. And there's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. And that is because you get the highest level of tenant placement. You get the highest level of return on those types of properties. And these properties need to be built after 1985. So I go 1985 or newer. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. And a lot of my mentors and mentors would say that it's a 3-2 brick ranch. Now that was a great buy box. And so ideal rental property, I call buy box. And that's what I teach my students, is develop the perfect buy box for you so that you know how to say yes and no really quickly. But my buy box is 3-2-2 and usually vinyl wrapped, because that's lower maintenance, right? Now brick is also lower maintenance, but I definitely don't want wood siding, and I don't want hardy siding or anything like that. I want something that's easily cleanable, hard to damage, hard to mess up, because you want your investment properties to be rugged and stand the test of time. And when you have wood siding and stuff like that, it deteriorates. You got to repaint it and stuff like that. So brick or vinyl, those are my ideal properties. And I like to shoot for something that's within a 10 to 15 mile radius of where I live. And so, and I do that for the ease of service, because I don't invest in real estate so passively that I don't know my tenants. I don't invest so passively that I don't know my properties. There are a lot of people out there that are investors of properties in multiple states and sometimes different countries. That's not me. That's not the level I'm on. I don't know if I want to be on that level. When I went into this, I went in with a very clear clarity of where do I really want my portfolio to be and what do I want it to look like. Well, it was 10 to 15 miles from my house. If there's something wrong with the property, I or someone in my team can go check on it really quickly. I can, have face to face with my tenants and, build this camaraderie and relationship and a business relationship with my tenants to know that I'm here for you. You're here for me. We're both providing a service to one another. I'm here to solve your problems. You're here to solve mine. And, when you approach real estate investing with that mentality, you're going to be hyper successful. You can't approach real estate investing with a sense of, I'm going to become a millionaire. It's going to happen. Zig Ziglar is a great inspirational speaker. And he said, if you help enough people get what they want, you will get what you want. And that has to go in place of everything that you do. You have to help people get what they want, whether it's being a buyer or whether it's being a landlord. You got to help people get to their next station in life. And that's going to help you get to yours.
So you manage your own properties, just to clarify?
Yes, I do. Right. For the time being, yes.
Yeah. Why do so many people, Eric, try and fail in the first few months of investing in real estate? What are they missing, do you think?
Yeah.
Is it back to that vision conversation?
It definitely is. A lot of people love to get in real estate investing really quickly, and they see all these ads on Facebook for come to this seminar and you'll get your first property in 3 months, or join my course and you'll make $10,000 a month passive. And all of that is very, sexy and really cool to say, I can get rich quick. Well, the thing is, you're not going to get rich quick. You're going to fail quick if you go into it with that mentality. And a lot of people go into this with the wrong expectations of the level of work it takes to get there, the level of commitment, and bigger of all is the level of sacrifice it takes to get there. My wife and I lived in a tow-behind trailer, 20-foot little travel trailer, our first 18 months of marriage, because we lived in that travel trailer and went around and renovated houses and built up our nest egg. We built up our success. We saw the hard work come to life right before our eyes. My wife was a data and analytics manager for this food and service company, and she would work underneath the awning. She worked from home. She'd work underneath the awning of the camper, and I would be at the property working on it. And it was just such a level of sacrifice that we didn't really know was going to be necessary. But when we started to live it and experience it, we just we accepted it. We embraced it. We let it motivate us and fuel us and say, there's no way we're giving up now. Look at all of this crap that we've poured into it. And so, the reason most people, fail in the first 3 months is they have the wrong expectations. They're not willing to sacrifice, and they haven't done the backwards planning. They don't know what they're going to get out of it. They don't know why they're doing it. It can't be for money. I promise you, you will never be successful if it's just for money.
Absolutely. And I think speaking to teachers as an educator myself, you as a former teacher, there's a tremendous human fulfillment in the work that we do. So I think that's so important, just to reiterate that you need to think about, is your life going to be as fulfilling as it is right now in terms of the people that you are serving and ministering to in different ways by providing this fundamental need of shelter and hopefully serving them in other ways as well. I haven't heard you talk about joint venture investments. I wanted to ask you about that. Is that part of your strategy? And before I lose the thought, it sounds like your journey in real estate investing started with a healthy element of flipping and then has sort of evolved more into a buy and hold strategy. Are you involved in a mix of those two right now? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, so when we first got started, it was all buy and holds. We did the BRRRR process, which is something that we learned through Bigger Pockets, but it's been a timeless thing. BRRRR just came from Brandon Turner and David Green at Bigger Pockets. It's buy it, renovate it, rent it out, refinance it, and repeat it. And that was our strategy. Yeah. So we would buy dilapidated properties that needed some love. We would renovate them with our own money. A lot of times it was money out of our 401ks, or it was money that we borrowed from someone else that trusted us to be a good steward of their money. And we renovated it with that. We'd get it rented out, performing, then we'd refinance it, and we would get cash out because we added so much sweat equity and value into it that we were able to take a little bit of a nest egg into the next one. Now, we have flipped half a dozen properties through the years. Those were properties that came to us that did not necessarily fit our buy box, but they were great properties. And so I was like, well, these deals are in my lap, and I want to be a good, steward, to say the same thing twice, of my skills and my ability. So I'm going to take these properties, I'm going to renovate them, create a nice home for someone else to live in. And so we did flip about 6 properties over the past 5-6 years that were absolutely money makers. They were money makers, and they did help us buy more buy and holds. But our strategy has always been the flip to rent or BRRRR strategy. And then your other question, if you'll remind me your other question, Tim.
Yeah, my other question was about joint ventures. So I'm thinking about that teacher or middle income earner. Maybe they don't have a ton of capital. They don't have enough for a down payment, but they're prepared to partner with someone. What are your thoughts on partnerships? Is that ground to avoid, or is that something you also encourage?
Yeah, I've been told many things about partnerships. The only ship guaranteed to sink is a partnership, right?
It's a Dave Ramseyism, yeah.
I'm sure we've heard that. I've been in some partnerships. I've been in some JVs, joint ventures. Now they differ in many ways, but the most important thing to understand when looking at possibly JVing is you have a certain skill set that you bring to the table. You want to make sure whoever you're entering into an agreement with is complementary to your skill set. They're bringing something you can't already bring. A lot of times for teachers, we have the hustle, we have the determination, we have the ability to solve problems and figure them out. And the other person might be the one bringing the money, might be the person bringing some skill sets of, use these contractors or do this with the property, do that with the property. Usually if we have a lower income earner that is trying to JV with someone else, the other party is going to be well experienced in the space. And the teacher is there to learn and to grow as well. And so let's put this in the framework of Eric's still a high school teacher, and I want to become a real estate investor. What I would do first is I would go learn everything I can. I would immerse my life into real estate investing. And that's what my wife and I did for about 12, 18 months. We turned the radio off. We turned the TV off. We didn't do anything except listen, eat, sleep, breathe, everything you can think of real estate investing. And we stopped going out to eat, everything. We stopped everything. Date night was watching webinars. And, it was just, that was our life. And the only time we went out to eat was to go to the local real estate meetup at IHOP. And so we would go get pancakes once a month and consume. We said no to everything else so that we could say yes to this. And as a high school band director, there's a lot of things I couldn't say no to. So oftentimes on Thursdays, which these meetings were on Thursdays, I would have band practice from 4 p.m. till 6:30 p.m. And then I'd immediately drive 45 minutes to the meeting just to catch the last 20 minutes where my wife was already there. And I would go to that meeting. And then if we had a deal going on after the meeting, I would drive to the property that we're working on, and I'd work on that property till about 1 o'clock in the morning, and then go. Most of the time I would sleep on an air mattress at that rental property that I was renovating. I'd wake up, go to work at 6 a.m. for bus duty, and then repeat that process every single day. So there comes that another ring of sacrifice. You have to be relentless with your sacrifice. It's going to be unforgiving until it's not. And when you get to the point where it's like, was it all worth it? I promise you it will be. I just tangented. I'm sorry for tangenting.
No, I love that. I don't want to scare listeners, Eric. I mean, you don't necessarily have to follow the 5-hour sleep model, right, to get into real estate investing. But that was a season for you. It sounds like that was a season of sacrifice, and it paved the way for the place that you are today. I want to take you on the investing teacher, Eric, into some other investing spaces. And you may not be a fan of these spaces, but I want to get your thoughts. Cryptocurrencies, as you know, have had quite a ride for the last 5 to 10 years. Bitcoin in particular is on something of a bull run, although I just checked in on it before this conversation. It's not so hot this week, but what's next for crypto in your mind?
I will preface this to say I am investing in crypto, but not in a massive way. Okay. So I do have money parked in crypto. I would say most of it is speculative. Now, it is here to stay. I do believe that. I follow Robert Kiyosaki very closely in his teachings. And if you're not following Kiyosaki, I encourage you to. Now, he is very unmainstream. He is quite the polar opposite of a lot of people out there teaching investing strategies, but he's highly successful. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad was one of the first books I read when getting into real estate investing, and it shifted my mindset. It shifted everything in my mind that I thought I knew about money and gave me the mindset to know what I know now about money. So crypto, highly speculative, in my opinion, highly volatile. But if you have like an extra $100 a month that you would otherwise spend on lottery tickets and McDonald's, I'd park it in crypto. But if otherwise have other places to invest, I'd invest on other places.
Speaking of other places, Eric, what's your strategy in the stock market right now?
I was so excited when I left teaching, and I'm not encouraging teachers to leave teaching, but when I left teaching, I was so excited to pull my money out of the stock market. I was so excited to take my TRS and roll it into something different. And the reason I say that is the stock market is also speculative. It is also volatile. You have the ability to grow, but you also have the ability to fall and fail as well, just like many investing spaces. The reason I choose real property, real estate, over the stock market is it is an asset that I can tangibly touch. It is something that I have 100% of control over, especially with the sense of tenant placement. Now, I don't have full control over, home prices in my zip code or what the market's going to do, but I have way more control over my asset when it's real property. And real property has a better trajectory than the stock market does, in my opinion. Now, a lot of people can look at graphs and charts in different angles and say, no, actually, you're wrong because of this angle. It's like, well, I'm looking from my lens and my angle, and I like it better. And if there is anything we can learn from the most successful investor out there, Warren Buffett, is you invest in things you know, like, and trust. And I know, love, and trust real estate, and that's where I put my effort and energy. Wherever you put your effort and energy, you're going to be successful. So I'd say if you love the stock market and you know what to do in there, if you're a day trader and you know what you're doing, or if you're a penny stock investor, whatever it is, if you know it, like it, and love it, keep doing it because you're going to find success in there.
I know this doesn't support your point perfectly, but that's generally my strategy in the stock market is invest in companies that I know, like, and trust every day. I resonate with everything you said about real estate, though. I think it's a phenomenal investment for so many reasons, and it certainly provides you the options of leveraging against your property to make further investments that investments like the stock market can never give you, right? You can never borrow against your stocks to invest in other things. You certainly can with properties, and that's a huge advantage that I think people forget about. Generally, they think about cash flow and appreciation, but there's also that third win of leveraging. Thanks for tuning in, investors, to the audio-only version of the show. Consider adding the Investing Teacher podcast to your morning commute. Eric, as you look back, what's been the single most positive investment move you've ever made? Was it that first property?
So I probably have two answers for you here. The most positive investment I ever made was the decision to invest. And that is because now I have the time and financial freedom to do whatever I want to with my family. I have a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. And just this last week on Wednesday, I just, woke up and I was like, hey boys, y'all want to go to the aquarium today? And they're like, yeah, let's go. And I was able to just do that on a whim. And, anything that I really want to do, I can do it. But I also have the freedom to go work as much as I want to work. So I think the best investment I ever made was with myself, investing in my education and investing in my future. Now, the second, to give you a more tangible aspect of what is the most positive investment I ever made, it would be our second property that we purchased. And we made an initial offer on this property. It was listed at 130, and I made a 125 offer, and they rejected my offer. This was back in 2017. They rejected my offer, and I was like, okay, whatever, that's fine. You can't win them all. And 6 months later, they took the property off the market, and then they relisted it for $75,000. And this is a triplex in a very nice area of town. And I called my agent and I was like, hey, Brian, what is going on with this property? He's like, well, they had an inspection. A lot of things were revealed and they don't think they can sell it for more. I was like, okay, why did they not revisit my 125 offer? He's like, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I said, okay, put a full cash offer in now. And when we bought the property, we ended up closing at $68,000. And then we put about $30,000 into it, and we did the BRRRR strategy. We bought it, we renovated it, and then we filled the property up with tenants. We got 3 great tenants in there. Then we refinanced it. When we refinanced it, the property appraised at $200,000. And so we were immediately $50,000 richer in equity and $50,000 cash in our pocket. And we were able to take that $50,000 and buy 4 more properties with it. So because of the different positions of how we bought properties. So that was the single most positive investment we've ever made. I learned so much. That was my first eviction that I had to go through because we bought the property with someone already living there. Turns out they were a meth head and they were cooking meth in the closet, whatever, but it was one of those, like, I learned a lot. I got to know like the city cops, because when they evicted, someone ran and got tased, and I don't know, it was all kind of crazy stuff in the street there. But we cleaned up the property. We bettered that area of the street. It's now one of the nicer homes on that street, and people love what we've done with the property. It's well kept. It's all nice. So that was the single most positive investment we've made.
Those are very different dollars than my zip code, I can tell you that. But yeah, I love that story of quick appreciation. I mean, that turned out really, really well, despite the police confrontations. Looking back on your investing journey, Eric, what's one piece of advice that you wish you could share with your 25-year-old self? So I'm thinking here of not only you and your story, but also of that teacher or that middle income earner who is listening right now, maybe at the beginning of their career. What is it that you would like to go back and say to yourself back when you were 25? I don't know how old you are now.
Yeah, that was about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm fairly young, and I love that, right? I won't be young forever though. So my 25-year-old self, I would honestly love to sit down with him and say, listen, don't get caught up in all the drama, all of the goings of your job, because don't over invest in your job. Because at the end of the day, you could get fired or you could resign, and they're going to have your job posted the next day and filled by the next calendar school year or the next week. You're highly replaceable. And so no matter what you're doing, no matter how much you're pouring into it, yes, and I want to iterate this hard, it is a noble profession. You're doing the Lord's work in shifting and shaping the minds of our youth to become better leaders for our country tomorrow. That is noble. That is important. And you need to be doing that. If you're a teacher out there listening, you're doing something incredible, but don't overinvest with it, that you sacrifice your own life and you sacrifice your own family, and that you sacrifice the people around you that care about you. You are replaceable, and the things that are not replaceable are the younger years of your children's lives, the relationship you have with your spouse. Those are not replaceable. So just be very intentional of where you're investing your time and energy, because that's where you're going to find the fruit. The garden is green where you water it. Don't let the only water you pour out of your bucket be at your job place. That's the advice I would give to me.
So good. What's one thought, Eric, that you would share with middle-aged earners who are typically earning a reasonable pension, or pardon me, a reasonable salary and contributing to pension plans? I was really interested to hear about you, if I can use the word cannibalizing your 401k to get in on real estate. That's obviously gone very well for you. Speak to that person who is afraid of missing out on that 10% match that they're getting from their district, and they're putting a lot of faith in that pension plan.
Yeah, I would say watch the news. Look at what's happening in California, and I'm not sure where you are, Tim. You might be in California, but watch what's happening in the news with pensions. It is advice that I've heard through Kiyosaki and other way smarter and predictive people than me, that pensions are going to fail. Pensions will fail in the sense of, you might be getting a 10% match, but that's going to tangible eyes you're going to see that literally as you might get 2 cents or 2 pennies on your dollar of match, not, match for match, right?
Sure.
What they're promising you now may not be what's reality when you reach retirement. We all see what happened with SSI and how that has shifted and continues to shift. If you're relying on Social Security and your teacher's pension and your teacher retirement, I would absolutely put that into an Excel chart and then run that at like 60%. And that's what I would say is possible. And not 100%, because you see our national debt, you see what's happening, and that's going to impact everything. And I think pension plans are really up next in bubbles to pop, because you have a lot of those boomers that are using these pension plans now that are just sucking them dry. We don't have enough people entering the workplace of fire, train, police, teachers, military, even to rebuild this fund of pensions. there's not enough people entering these workforces to support how much is being drawn from them. And so there's going to be a restructuring. And what's going to happen is you're going to receive less than you thought you would. And so people that are scared, of saying, well, I trust that this is going to work, and it might, it very well might, but what's the harm in having a secondary plan? What's the harm of having some other buffer in place? Instead of saying, I'm going to figure out how to live on $5,500 a month. What if you say, I'm going to know how to live on $15,000 a month? That's a very different way of life in your retirement years. You don't want to be in retirement years and wondering if you're going to run out of money. You don't want to do that. So now is the time to start investing in yourself and figuring out how to make sure that doesn't happen. So I cannibalized my retirement. I actually moved it from a traditional 401k into a solo K, which means I can self-direct that. I can invest in things that I know, like, and trust. And so I invest my solo K and my self-directed IRAs into people in my community that I know, like, and trust and believe in their skill sets. And I invest in them and help them buy properties.
As we start to wrap up, Eric, I'm going to share a few rapid fire questions. So you're welcome to keep these answers on the brief side, and I won't follow up, but share about a personal habit or a productivity hack that has contributed to your investment success.
It's going to sound weird, but gut health. When your body can operate like a machine, you will operate better and more productive. So in turn with saying gut health, chia seeds, flaxseed, coconut oil, MCT, if you can find a way to consume these things daily, you will have a better productivity with your body and you will feel better and you'll perform better.
Tell us about one person that we should follow on X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever you hang out. Who's been inspiring you lately?
So I love to follow the Zig Ziglar Instagram page because they just share Zig stuff. And I love following Tony Robbins as well.
Recommend one book, maybe one that you've been reading lately or one of your all-time faves, and tell us why you recommend it.
The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And this is a very out there book that talks about energy and your connection to the energy of this world and how you can disconnect from the realism things in life and reconnect with your soul and body. And in turn, you will experience more success than you ever thought imaginable.
And on the subject of podcasts and as a support to my work here, who's one investor that you would recommend I interview next on the Investing Teacher podcast?
So my partner, I think it would be a great idea to have my partner, Joshua Boyd, come on your podcast. He is still teaching and he is investing. He is in real estate investing. I think it would be great for you to have Josh on this show.
Eric, what are the best ways for my listeners to follow you?
Yes, absolutely. Head over to onpurposeinvestor.com. There you'll find all of our links for Facebook and Instagram. And our email is there. Shoot us an email. I'd love to be in touch with you. Also, we have our podcast there. We're almost over 100 episodes. Love sharing our skills and just different tips and tricks along the way.
And this URL, do you want to speak to that as well? They've got a free book available to them. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you head to onpurposeinvestor.com/ebook, you can just plug your email address in right there and get a free download of the Pathfinder's Journey. And you'll also be able to download the Pathfinder's Journal, which is a guided journal to help you with your reading so that you can start implementing the ideals of Pathfinder's Journey into your own life right away.
That all sounds great, Eric. Thank you so much for sharing so much in terms of resources and ideas. Thank you for sharing your time with the podcast today. It's been great to learn from you. Investors, I'm your host, Tim Cavey, and I'm so grateful that you decided to spend some of your day listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed the content you heard today from my guest today, Eric Vogel, make sure to connect with him on LinkedIn and all the other places that he mentioned. In the meantime, investors, keep on investing, and I'll meet you next week right here on the Investing Teacher Podcast. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tim.